Now that we've talked about cooperation, it's time to talk at least a little bit about conflict. If you watch nature specials, they sometimes make it seem as though organisms are constantly locked in life and death struggles with one another. And often organisms are in conflict with one another. Often organisms want the same resource. But conflict is never in the best interest of either individual involved. It may be something you have to do in order to get resources, but organisms are going to tend to evolve to minimize the conflict they take part in because conflict is risky. It can lower your fitness. This has led to some pretty bizarre things in the natural world. Here's one of them. These organisms here are called stalk-eyed flies because these are their eyes. Why do they have eyes that stick out on these ridiculous protuberances from the sides of their heads? Well, this is how these two males will decide which one of them is the bigger, stronger, and scarier male. True story. Why, the reason they do this is because by comparing head sizes, they can keep conflict to a minimum, and that maximizes everybody's fitness. Often, when you have organisms competing in nature, they won't go right into a fight. What they'll do instead is try to communicate that they are stronger than the other individual. Okay, and this is when you see organisms squaring off against one another, and for particular, when you've got two organisms in mating season that are competing over a mate, they'll try to look bigger, they'll try to look as strong as they can. Obviously, it's adaptive if you are a stronger competitor to communicate that. Maybe you'll be able to get the other individual to back down, and so you won't have to go through a fight. By the same token, it's actually better for a weaker competitor to back down as soon as possible. Fights are going to be even harder on those weaker competitors, and they don't want to get into them. So it's in both parties' interests, actually, for them to communicate and figure out which one of them really is stronger. And if there's if one of them's obviously going to be superior to the other one in an actual fight, then it makes sense for the weaker one to just sort of back away. So again, it's good for everybody. What has happened in many species is that this whole system by which individuals honestly advertise how strong and fierce and superior they are. So for example, in red deer, there's this escalating series of signals that individuals give. Usually, contests between two deer during the mating season start with roaring. If the roaring does not establish between two competitors which one of them is stronger, then usually what will happen is that they will walk parallel to one another. And doing this allows them to look over and size up the other individual. How strong is that individual? How big is that individual? Do I think I can really win a fight against this individual? Okay, almost always, in one of these first two phases, one of the individuals or the other will back down. Fights only actually happen when the two individuals are so closely matched that one or both of them isn't sure who's going to win. And so they have to fight it out to figure it out. And notice that even then, it's a ritual combat. There is no actual stabbing one another with those antlers. They're just pushing each other around to establish who is stronger. When one of the individuals realizes that it is not stronger, it's going to move on and nobody's gotten hurt. Weirdly, this kind of honest signaling can evolve even when we've got different species. When antelope, for example, run away from a predator, rather than just running as fast as they can, frequently what they will do is they'll run along and then they'll jump way up in the air, all 4 feet up the air, jumping as high as they possibly can. And they'll come down and keep running and then do it again. It's called pronking. And what pronking does is it advertises to the predator that might be chasing the antelope that, hey, I am so strong and powerful that I can leap way high up in the air. Look how high I can leap. You're not going to catch me. And it's basically the antelope is honestly showing the predator, I really can. I really do have a lot of athletic ability. I'm going to be able to get away from you. Just stop chasing me now. And it's in both parties' best interests, if the prey really is faster, for the predator to back down. This isn't to say that real fights don't happen in nature. We keep coming back to the elephant seals, but it's only because they have some pretty extreme things going on that make them a great example in evolutionary biology. These are two male elephant seals. They are fighting over the right to inhabit a mating beach which has dozens and dozens of females on it. And there's a tremendous amount at stake for them, because the male that wins this fight potentially could mate with lots of females and have lots of offspring. The individual who backs down from this fight won't get anything at all in terms of fitness. And so in these cases, you won't just have a ritual combat. You will have two animals fighting potentially to the death. But this is relatively rare. Usually, it's in the best interest of an organism that is pretty sure they're not going to win the fight for them to just head on out, and maybe they'll compete with another individual some other day. But now I just don't want to risk losing this fight and getting really hurt or killed.